Welcome back to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Shakras, and in today's video, like usual as of lately, I have a video regarding two different digital pianos. On top we have the Yamaha P125, and on the bottom we have the Yamaha DGX-660. So we've got two different digital pianos from Yamaha in roughly about the same price class, and so I'm doing a video on the two. You might be wondering to yourself, why are you making a video on the two? They are actually very similar, and they do have some similarities. They both use the same action, they have the same included pedal unit, and they even use the exact same 12-volt power supply. But there are a number of differences, and honestly I think the differences are stark enough that the DGX-660 and the P125 honestly cater to two completely separate niches in the digital piano market. As a brief overview, and I will talk more in detail about many of these things, at least the ones I remember to, but as a brief overview, the P125 is a very versatile instrument. It's great for being used to practice on at home, but you could also easily use it on location. You could take it to a local restaurant to play for the patrons, or you could take it to your buddy's house and just have some fun in the garage with it. It's got two proper line output jacks in the back of the instrument, which are great for running into an amplifier or a PA system or an audio interface, and they make recording and using it live on location very easy and basically flawless. The DGX-660 is also a very nice digital piano that would work great for home practicing, but honestly I think that is really its main home, is to stay at home. It technically can be used on location, and I'll talk more about that in a bit, but honestly its main strong point is being used at home. It has a number of features that you really never would use or need on stage, like for example you can take a microphone, run it through this instrument, and have it come back out of the speakers. You wouldn't really need that on an instrument like this. You can also do 5-track recordings, which might be handy on location, but I think would be more of a practicing tool than it would be something you'd want to do on the spot. You also have a number of built-in rhythms, built-in voices, and also some pre-recorded songs. You can also pop a USB device right in here to add memory to the instrument to be able to make more custom songs of your own. It also has 554 different voices and different sound banks of the instrument, whereas the P125 only has 24 different sound samples. So the DGX-660 has way more than the P125 as well, giving you a much broader range of things to play with and have fun at home. So let's check out the default piano sound of both of these. Let's play Bach's First Fugue from the Well-Tempered Clavier on the P125, and then halfway through it I'll try to switch and do it on the DGX-660. That might be difficult and I might mess up, but I will do my best and we'll see how that goes. We can compare the sounds of the pianos between these two instruments. As you can hear, the digital piano sound, or the acoustic piano sample on these two digital pianos, is actually really quite similar. The DGX-660 has a little bit more reverb, so that is kind of adding a little bit to the sound, but honestly, the sound is very similar. You'd think that the speakers of the P125 would be radically worse than those of the DGX-660, considering the speaker grills themselves on the 660 are so much bigger than the P125, but honestly, the P125 really holds its own, and it really does sound very nice compared to the DGX-660. The DGX almost sounds a little bit more thin in comparison to the P125, but it's still perfectly adequate for playing at home. So for recording, definitely the P125 is better and a lot easier to use because of that direct line output. I mentioned that earlier, that the DGX-660 isn't as great for being used on location because of that line output, so I think now is the time to talk about it. The P125, like I mentioned before, has two proper line outputs, one for the right channel and one for the left channel, which is universally found in many professional tier digital pianos and other instruments as well. The DGX-660, however, only has a singular jack in the back of the instrument, which can be changed from being used as a headphone jack or being used as a line output jack, and there's also another option in the menu as well. However, I've run into some issues actually recording it and getting a solid signal out of it. Certain sounds don't behave the way they should through certain audio interfaces, and so it's just not as optimal to use for this sort of thing. The DGX-660 honestly hasn't been the smoothest recording instrument that I've had here in the studio, and I think that all of that is coming from that strange interchangeable audio jack. You can definitely use it as a headphone jack, and technically you would be able to use it as a amplifier cable, running out to an amplifier, but honestly the two direct line outputs on the P125 are better. Having said that though, if you're looking for a mostly home-based digital piano and you don't have any plans to go out in public with your piano and play, the DGX-660 still is a really good option, and for some I might even consider it to be a better option than the P125. It really just depends on what you're looking for out of a digital piano. If you're looking for a small number of very high quality sounds, at least in this price bracket, the P125 is a very good option. You've only got 24, but they're a lot higher quality than some of the sounds of the DGX-660. However, if you're looking for something to just have a lot of fun with at home, the DGX-660 might actually be the better option. Although not all of the sounds are as good on the P125, but it also has a much wider spread of sounds than the P125. I'm dialing in the cool suitcase electric piano sound of the DGX-660, which, while it has a different tone than the Rhodes sound of the P125, and neither of them compete with the real Fender Rhodes, both of them sound pretty nice. Have a listen. Both of them have a very nice sound. The DGX-660 I think has a bit more bass frequencies down here in the low bass, but they both sound pretty nice. The P125 up next in the electric piano category, if I remember correctly, is a Yamaha DX type of sound. This should have one. There it is. Have a listen to this. Personally, I like the one up here on the P125. It just reminds me more of the 70s and 80s ballads that I've heard myself, but neither of them are bad. Up next here is a Wurlitzer sound on the P125, which is one of the few unique sounds on the P125. Even though the DGX-660 has 554 sounds, I'm not able to find a Wurlitzer sound in here. It might be in there, it might be hidden somewhere and named something different, but I actually wasn't able to find it. However, here is the Wurlitzer sound of the Yamaha P125. The final sound of the P125's electric piano category is a synth type of pad. The DGX-660 has a wide range of different pads. You've also got some synth leads, some square and sawtooth wave synths, as well as a wide number of strings pads, brass pads, and just general synth pads in general. So I'm not going to go through every single sound of the DGX-660. That would take way too long, but I think what I am going to try to do here is match up every single sound of the P125 to something on the DGX-660 and find something that's similar to compare. Not all of them will be identical, but some of them will be similar. So let's find a pad here. Maybe actually I won't because they're in a different section. So I think I'll show you the pads in a bit later. But here's the synth pad on the P125. Kind of a breathy bell style pad. Pretty cool sounding. Up next we have the organ section. So now let me spin around to the organs. There they are. On the DGX-660. I have to say, even though there's a massive amount of sounds on the DGX-660, it's really easy to select a new one, and especially once you get a feel for where everything is laid out, it's really easy to use this big wheel and just jump right to the sound you want. There's also a number pad here, so if you remember the exact number you want, you can just enter that into the number pad and it works great. So that's really fantastic. Some digital pianos that have a load of sounds are very difficult to navigate, and this is not one of them. So up next is the organ section, like I said, and one thing that's kind of odd between the two is that the DGX is a whole octave lower than the P125. You'll hear that in a bit, and I'll probably mess up because I have to change octaves between them, and I might get the wrong octave at one point. But here is the first organ sound for both of them, which basically sounds the same. It's got a little bit more high partials to it on the P125, but the overall tone is about the same. They do have some slight differences. The P125 almost has a slight Leslie kind of a rotary sound to it, or vibrato, whereas this one doesn't, but they both definitely do sound like an emulation of a tone wheel organ, and both of them I think are pretty nice. Not all of the organ sounds of the DGX-660 are great. This next one really isn't my favorite one. But there are actually a number of really good ones in here as well that are on par with the P125. And there's, like I said, there's a whole bunch of them in there. So if one of them isn't your cup of tea, then there's definitely going to be some that are there. So obviously they don't compete with a real Hammond B3, just like the Rhodes sounds don't compete with the real Rhodes. But it is nice that there's a wide variety of different organ sounds, so you can kind of get a different flavors of the various sounds that a Hammond organ could produce. Up next is like an overdriven tone wheel organ, like a rock sound. I don't know if this has the exact sound as the P125 does, but this is a similar style of sound, so have a taste of that. One thing about the DGX-660 that definitely also makes it not as optimal for recording or even for performing is that all of the organ sounds seem to be a lot louder than the piano and electric piano sounds of the instrument. So I have to turn the volume down to around 3 o'clock. You know, the little mark on the knob here goes to around 3 o'clock like it would be on a clock face, and that seems to get the organ sounds to be about the same volume as the acoustic piano sounds. Up here on the P125, I actually don't have that problem. I don't have to move the volume at all, and if I do, maybe just a tiny bit lower, and then the organ sounds will be the same as the digital pianos. So that is something that also is different about the DGX-660. Here's a couple more organ sounds. They're definitely better on the P125 than the DGX, but I thought I'd show you the two church organ sounds. They're one of my favorite sounds of the P125. One thing that last sound of the DGX-660 did get right is the reverb. It has a lot of reverb, very echoey sound. The P125 didn't have as much reverb on that sound as you might expect. But the last sound of that DGX-660 there, the pipe organ sound, is really, really loud and honestly doesn't sound phenomenal. Up next, we have the clavinet and vibraphone sound of the P125. Let's find the electric clavichord. There's actually 3 different versions of it down here on the DGX-660, and there's only one of the clavinet sounds up here. Just have a quick listen to that. Those are the 3 different clavinet sounds of the DGX-660, and there's also a harpsichord sound. There's 2 variants of it up on the P125. There's also one of them down here on the DGX. Have a listen to that. The P125 has a nice little click sound after you let off the keys, which the DGX-660 doesn't, but that's a little bit of a small difference there. There's also a vibraphone sound in here, which should be that one, and the DGX-660 has a vibraphone somewhere in here. I think it's after, is it after all of the saxophone sounds and brass sounds? Here we go. Vibraphone, there it is. 144. The P125, I think, definitely wins there. The vibraphone on here sounds more like a marimba with an artificially added sustain, but it's also kind of a cool sound, and I can't really say that I hate it. Up next, we have a strings section for the P125, and down here we also have a heck of a lot of different strings sound. Let me scroll back down here, and we have a large amount of strings. Now, the orchestra sounds and all that, they're not really my favorite thing in digital pianos anyway, so I can't really comment on which one's better or worse, but have a listen to those. There are a number of really cool ones in here, though, that I will touch on as well. Neither really sound like an orchestra, but I think the P125 has the bit of the edge over the DGX. However, I do think that live string sound would sound pretty nice layered behind a piano, so I do think it does have its place. One of my favorites, though, on here on the DGX-660 is the pizzicato string sound. It's pretty awesome. Now that, in my opinion, sounds really, really cool, and that's what I mean about the DGX-660 being fun. The P125 doesn't have sounds like that, and it also doesn't have sounds like this one here, which I'll get to in a second. It's more serious. It's a bit more, toned down. It only has, like, the essential sounds that you'd really need. The DGX-660 has the sounds that you'll need, and a whole bunch of extras, like this one, which I think sounds awesome. That sounds pretty fun. I really, really like that sound, and that's something the P125 doesn't have. And there's so many other different sounds in here. I really love the brass section of the DGX-660. Many of them sound really fantastic. And then you also have a bunch of individual sounds for like the individual, individual trumpets, saxophones, trombones, all that sort of stuff. You have a bunch of different sounds of the DGX-660, including a lot of the wacky things too, which I think we'll check out here in a little bit. In the strings category, I think there's just a couple of different strings and a choir sound on the P125, and then you also have a few different bass variants here on the P125. If I skip back on the DGX-660 down here to 58, actually, no, 50, wait, hang on, there we go, 56 is the first bass sound down here, so we've got a few different bass variants on the two. Once again, like with the organ sounds, the bass sounds are also shifted down an entire octave. Not sure why, but they are. So that is just about every single sound of the P125 and its rough equivalent of the DGX-660. So clearly the DGX-660 can do just about everything that the P125 can do, but the DGX-660 has a lot of sounds that the P125 simply doesn't have. All the different synth sounds, all of the different brass sounds, all of the various, woodwind and percussion instruments. This has entire patches just full of random percussion sounds, which actually sound pretty nice as well. So it's very interesting, some of the things that Yamaha has decided to include in the DGX-660. I mentioned I'd show you a couple of the synths, so here's one of them. It's called Paraglide. This is a quick little taste of that. Of course, this also has the pitch bends. You can play with that. That really is useful on the synth sounds to give them a little bit more expression. That was just one of many synth sounds here on the instrument. What's interesting is as you scroll through the sounds and you get up to around sound file 167, they all repeat back on themselves again. So sound number 168 is another grand piano, and then from there on the sounds kind of repeat all over again. You've got acoustic pianos, electric pianos, organs, and other such instruments like that, except there's also a few extra ones thrown in there too, and they all have a slightly different flavor. I don't know why Yamaha didn't just combine them all into one giant group and have like 30 acoustic piano sounds and 25 different electric piano sounds and 40 organ sounds all in one group, but they didn't, so there's kind of an extra hidden rank of different sounds later on down the instrument. I'm not going to go through every single one, but there are a number of different cool ones in here. The DGX-660 is just an absolute massive amount of instrument. You got so many different sounds, all kinds of cool stuff, all kinds of crazy stuff, and I think we'll end it off with a bang here and do one of my favorite ones on here, which is going to be the fireworks sound. That is just one of many crazy different sound effects that the DGX-660, almost forgot the name there, has in it. You've got a whole patch full of dog bark sounds. You've got a whole patch full of helicopter sounds and horse hoof noises. So you've got all kinds of different strange sound effects. You can create some fun scenarios with it by holding the pedal down and switching sounds and adding in different sound effects and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So the DGX-660, while it can do the serious things that you would want out of a musical instrument, acoustic pianos, electric pianos, synth bass and brass and all kinds of stuff, you can also do some really strange things with it and have a lot of fun with it. I did a bit more of that in my actual review of the DGX-660, so I won't dive into it too much here. But kind of as a signing off note of this video and a recap of the video, the P125 and the DGX-660 are both really great instruments, and for the right person, both of them might be perfect for this price category. The P125 is more versatile, it's a little bit more compact, and it's a bit more professional as well. If you showed up to a gig with the DGX-660, while it can do most everything the P125 can do, people might look at you a little funny. The P125 does have a bit more of a professional air about it. The DGX-660, though, I think has a bit more fun to it, and in my opinion, there's two different types of fun you can have with music. music. You can have fun in the professional sense, where you sit down with your friends and make some real music and just have fun making music together, but you can also have fun with the digital piano in the way that I did there at the end and just goof around with it and see what wacky noises you can create with it. That's something I've been doing literally my whole life, and it's still something I enjoy to this day, and that is something the DGX-660 is very good at, as you can definitely tell. But you also do have a wide array of actual serious sounds in here as well that you could literally use in music as well, so it's really, really interesting. It's a very wide... What do I even use to describe it? It's got a very wide base of things it can do. You can play it seriously, you can play it in a weird way, you can use it to record, you can use the rhythms to play along with them. It's a really great practicing tool. For somebody who is easily distracted, like myself when I was much younger, it may not be the best thing, and for a young child, in some ways, I could recommend the P125, and in other ways, I could recommend the DGX-660, because if you have a kid who perhaps wants to learn the piano or learn an instrument, if you get them the DGX-660, they might be more inclined to play with it and just mess around and have fun. And even if they're playing with a sample full of bird tweet noises, they're still having fun with a musical instrument, and it will leave them with a positive experience later on down in life. They'll look back on their childhood and go, man, that piano was so much fun. Maybe I'll get back into it later. You know what I mean? But also, the P125 might also be a better option because it'll kind of keep you more focused on the music and just, focusing on what is truly important. But having fun is also important, so the DGX-660 is cool. You can definitely see why both of these do have a place on the market. The DGX-660 is more for fun, the P125 is more for serious music and also for being used on location, but honestly, both of them are pretty nice. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this review of the DGX-660 and the P125. I know that I didn't dive into every little itty-bitty feature of the DGX-660, and it does do a lot of things that I didn't really talk about in this video, like the harmonizer and the smart chords and all those things, but I really focus more on the actual playing experience of digital pianos and less so of the nitty-gritty features. But the DGX-660 does have some great features, like I mentioned before. The recording feature in particular I think would be really handy for actually learning how to make music and learning how to add sounds together and how different sounds combine and what sounds good with what. That's a really great tool, and I really, really like that. So basically, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of a long thing, and I've been having a hard time trying to figure out how to all wrap it up in one, but I think I've finally done it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, you might want to go check out the rest of my channel if you're new here. I've got lots of cool videos of digital pianos, acoustic pianos, organs, keyboards, and all kinds of other cool stuff too. So if any of that sounds cool, you might want to check out my channel, and if you do that, well, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.